I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another live edition. It is March 11th, 2014. Tonight's live edition, I'm going to be getting into a few different things. Hour number one, I have a guest on. And then hour number two, I'm going to be getting into a few different things, including the weirdness surrounding the missing 777 and a few other things. But that's for hour number two. Anyway, hour number one, I want to get right to it because I have a guest waiting on the line. I want to give you a little bit of background about my guest. And I want to tell you what we're going to be talking about tonight. You've heard me talk about the tyranny, the food tyranny that is happening, the food freedom tyranny, where people have everything from hog farmers to like raw food collectives being raided at gunpoint, SWAT team style. Get on the ground, you food terrorists. You could have Al Qaeda in that kale. It's just ridiculous. I mean, we've gone off the chart. So there was a farmer named Mark Baker, and this goes back a couple years, and he had hybrid pigs that he was raising, and there's more to it, and I'm going to let my guest get into it and give you a little bit of background and then tell you what's been going on. And I want him to also tell you all a little bit about the Legal Defense Fund, the Farmers Legal Defense Fund, which I'm going to get into in a minute. But in this one case, this farmer, Mark Baker, was being harassed for 2 years, and he was involved in a protracted court battle. And finally, I was actually surprised at this, but a judge has been, taken his side, and he's ordered, pretty much the Department of Natural Resources to leave this guy alone, and that he is, a legitimate farmer. But I'm going to let my guest get into it. So let me introduce my guest to you all for this evening. His name is Peter Kennedy, Esquire. He's the president, founding board member of Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. The Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. I like the name of that. I like the sound of that. Pete Kennedy is an attorney in Sarasota, Florida, who spearheads the work of the Farmer to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. He began his work starting with dairy issues, particularly the right of farmers to distribute raw milk and raw milk products direct to consumers. I agree. There's no reason that the farmer shouldn't be able to sell it. There's no need for this bureaucracy middleman. Today, the fund works on a diverse array of right-to-farm issues, everything from oyster farming on public lands to free-range pork and farm-buying club raids. He has represented or assisted in the representation of dairy farmers facing possible state enforcement action in Florida, Wisconsin, Ohio, Michigan, and Indiana. He has helped farmers get started in the business of distributing raw milk and raw milk products in many other states. He has written articles for Wise Traditions Journal and OpEdNews.com on the interstate ban on raw milk products for human consumption and the legality of selling raw milk interstate for animal consumption. He compiled the state raw milk laws and state raw milk summaries posted at www.realmilk.com. He is currently working with others to challenge the federal ban on interstate shipment of raw milk for human consumption. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome to the broadcast Peter. Peter, welcome to the show.
Good evening, Popeye.
So let's get right into it. What's the background story on Mark here? Why were they harassing him with his pigs to begin with?
Well, they were basically harassing him for exposing a scam. What happened, Popeye, was for a number of years, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources had been trying to get rid of these hunting preserves that exist in Michigan and offer wild hog hunts on enclosed properties. The reason they're doing that is it's basically competition to the Department of Natural Resources, DNR. DNR collects fees by having people hunt on public lands, and the people hunting on these preserves weren't giving them a dime. And what finally changed things around for them a bit was they were able to get the support of the Michigan Pork Producers Association. And the support of the pork producers just got them the political muscle to be able to issue an invasive species order. I think it went into effect. They issued it, I think, in 2011. And what the order said was that feral swine, Russian boar, Eurasian boar, among other species, were prohibited under this invasive species order. Possession of them was prohibited under the invasive species order. For a violation, there could be imprisonment for up to 2 years, and I think it was a $20,000 fine. So basically, what I've been told by Mark and the other heritage hog breeders is that all pigs are descended, all species of pigs in this country are descended from the Eurasian boar. So there's this group, the Michigan Animal Farmers Association, that wanted clarification. So as is their right under Michigan law, they asked for what's called a declaratory ruling, asking the Department of Natural Resources to further explain what exactly this invasive species order meant. And the DNR in December 2011 issued this declaratory ruling, just basing whether a pig was illegal or not on its physical characteristics. Under the declaratory ruling, if a pig had a straight tail, it could be prohibited. And if it had a curly tail, it could also be prohibited. And there were 8 different characteristics listed, and actually a 9th characteristic that were basically, the DNR said any characteristics we're not aware of this time, but we discover of at a future time, can also be added to this and used to ban any pig. And there's actually a Michigan animal industry law which bases on a determination on whether a pig is feral just on the fact of whether it's under the husbandry of humans. If it's running outside containment, it's a feral pig. And under Michigan law, I think can be shot on sight. But that wouldn't have worked for the DNR because these hunting preserves, like I mentioned, are contained. They couldn't use that definition. It wouldn't enable them to put the hunting preserves out of business. So they use this definition based on physical characteristics. And just when Mark was crossbreeding these Russian boars along with the these Mangalitsa pigs, and he knew this was going to affect him directly. He went, sued the DNR about a little over a month before the Invasive Species Order went into effect. Shortly after he sued, DNR filed a countersuit, just asking that Mark's asking the court to issue an order having Mark's pigs being destroyed and also fining him. And this case, like I said, I think started in February 2012, and it went, it's still active actually, but Mark was, after 2 years, he was finally going to get to his day in court. The trial today was actually supposed to be the first day of the trial. And here we have DNR saying for 2 years that his pigs were illegal. And at one time, they were actually asking the judge to fine him $700,000, which would be $10,000 for the pigs, $10,000 per pig out of the pigs they'd identified as being illegal. And just to put that in perspective, Mark's attorney, Michelle Hawley, checked all the records to see if anyone had ever been fined that much. And there was, the only case you could find was just this farm, which was a massive polluter over a number of years, like a 10-year period or more. Only that farm had ever racked up that high a dollar figure in fines. The other thing, while this case was ongoing, that DNR did was Mark had a big restaurant business selling pork to restaurants. DNR met with USDA, or just worked something out with USDA, where USDA would not allow Mark to have his pigs slaughtered at a USDA facility. It just seems like they went to the slaughterhouse operators and just let them know that they couldn't slaughter the type of pig Mark was breeding. So that cost him a ton of money. If he couldn't use the USDA slaughterhouse, he could not sell meat to restaurants. He lost a lot of other restaurant business in the meantime. And anyway, after 2 years of just asking the court to get rid of the pigs, to fine him all this money, shortly before, I think it was at the beginning of this year, they dropped their counterclaim against Mark. But Mark's claim against them was still alive. I mean, there was a hearing last summer where they tried to throw his suit against them out. They were unsuccessful. The judge was going to let two of the causes of action Mark had against them go to trial. So anyway, on February 26th, DNR was able to get one final hearing before the trial where the judge was going to hear yet another motion to dismiss the case. And at the beginning of the hearing, they basically stunned everyone by saying that they no longer had a problem with Mark's pigs. They thought they were legal, and that they were just, willing to let him get back in business. The judge really didn't have too much of a choice. There was no longer any dispute between the parties. Mark had been saying his pigs were legal all along, and all of a sudden the DNR agreed. I mean, it was a cynical manipulation of the judicial process. It was clear the DNR did not want to go to trial. They did not want to have the focus on this declaratory ruling and the fact that it could mean basically being as broad as it was, anything the DNR wanted it to mean on any particular day. They did not want that scrutinized, and in order to avoid trial, they basically gutted their invasive species order, because it clearly says in there that hybrid pigs are illegal under the invasive species order if they're Russian boar hybrids, and that's all Mark has. So it was just a cynical abuse of the judicial process. And on the one hand, there was just I think it helped some 2,000 other heritage breed farms out there, because it's going to be a lot more difficult for DNR to go after them after letting Mark's pigs go and saying, his herd of pigs were legal. But at the same time, Mark was trying to get a legal precedent set that the pigs were, that the invasive species order and the declaratory ruling were invalid, and that DNR need to start all over again, that they're going to issue an invasive species order, issue one where they didn't have all this broad discretion and just basically left farmers in the dark on whether their pigs were legal or not. So that's where it stands right now. I'm not sure if Mark has made up his mind exactly what he's doing yet. I think he wants to still get his day in court on the matter. But here's someone who'd been waiting 2 years for his day in court, was less than 2 weeks away, and DNR pulled the rug on him, out from him, by just coming up with a totally different position on his pigs than they had the prior 2 years.
Because they had this position where they went after him legally and they caused him monetary damage, and I'm sure they caused him time off from work just to have to go to court and all that. Can he go after them now? I mean, if they just suddenly flip-flopped and changed their position, does that not open them up for perhaps some sort of civil lawsuit?
Hopefully it will. Just these states have sovereign immunity to a certain degree. I think the other thing is the state of Michigan is practically broke. I mean, just what we've seen, in some of these other suits, is that the courts are reluctant to turn the taxpayers' money, or just have the state pay out on some cases. But, this is one case where it definitely calls for a payment out to the Baker family, because they've gone through just all kinds of hardship, and it's just taken a huge chunk out of their business the last couple of years. And if the state had taken this position they had at the February 26th hearing 2 years ago, none of this ever would have happened.
Yeah, well, that's why I asked, because it's obviously, any judge, I could see how your point about, the judge is reluctant to charge that to the taxpayers, but any judge with even some semblance of fairness is going to look at this case. This isn't like a frivolous lawsuit where it's just someone suing the city because, they're mad and they want to make a quick buck, and they figure the city or their insurance company will pay out. In this case, or a county or a state. In this case, this is an agency that literally cost this man money and a lot of undue stress. He should at least get the money back that he had to pay out in legal fees plus whatever he lost.
Well, and the danger of this order is that right now, it's been in effect about 2 years now, And the only farmers, they've countersued Mark and the only other farmer who wound up suing them over the constitutionality of the order. Just the trouble is, this is the way they're interpreting the order now, but that declaratory ruling and the invasive species order are still out there, and say there's an outbreak of brucellosis or some other kind of disease among a small number of pigs, they can just use this declaratory ruling to start depopulating herds. I mean, nothing's happened right now, but I mean, there's a precedent for what happened, something similar to the hoof and mouth disease 10 years ago or so over in Britain, where thousands of cattle were needlessly slaughtered. So what the Michigan Department of Agriculture actually had a state veterinarian testify at a hearing a couple of years ago that he did not believe pigs could be raised in the outdoors without being susceptible for disease. So that provided some insight into their thinking, and that's right up the Michigan pork producers' alley. I mean, they represent the indoor operations, the confined animal feeding operations, and it's an opportunity for them to increase their market share and gain greater control over the genetics of the pigs.
I wonder what is going to happen in the future if they're going to, like you said, that thing is still out there. They really haven't changed anything. I mean, their opinion of it changed, but there's really nothing other than, this decision on paper. There's really not more than that. I mean, that is, setting precedent, but still, I could foresee thugs coming out and the thugs in uniform coming out and causing issue. And it be leading to a protracted court battle for somebody else in the future if perhaps all these farmers and people don't get together and battle this and push that it gets changed completely once and for all.
Right, and the DNR isn't like your typical Department of Agriculture, which you'd think would usually have jurisdiction over something like this. I mean, the Department of Agriculture deals with farmers. The DNR deals with hunters. So they're a little more trigger happy than your typical inspector you typically have with an enforcement action coming from the Department of Agriculture. I mean, unfortunately, there have been a couple of newspaper stories about Mark that have basically tried to portray him as this gun-wielding radical out there, and it's what happens in these enforcement actions sometimes is you get these people who aren't that familiar with the case. They start doing research. They see a story like that, and they get more aggressive because of it. So it's overall, I think the press has been fair, but you still have stories like this which are completely inaccurate and just not fair to the family at all.
How we have about 2.5 minutes before we go to break, but how has his family been holding up? I mean, obviously this has to be very stressful on them. Are they glad that this is at least at least a precedent has been set, and even though he hasn't gotten a chance to have his day in court, are they glad that there's at least some bit of stress off their shoulders at this point?
Well, I mean, he'd be the one to speak to that. His wife, Jill, wrote something on their website after, which just indicated they had mixed feelings about it. I mean, on the good side, they have been declared by the DNR and this judge's ruling to be legal, where they would be able to use the USDA slaughterhouse again, so increasing the markets for their business. But at the same time, just the DNR caused them a lot of suffering over the 2 years. I mean, they could have quit a long time ago, but they stuck with it, trying to get their day in court. And DNR just manipulated the process and denied them that day to just avoid having a trial on the merits of the declaratory ruling. Just the other thing that's disturbing is that since the trial, there have been a couple newspaper stories. I think one of them was an AP Wire story, just quoting the press agent for DNR, saying that they still reserve the right to go out at Mark's existing herd and just possibly confiscate or depopulate pigs if they thought one of them violated the Invasive Species Order. Well, that is in direct violation of the judge's order. He dismissed Mark's case with prejudice, meaning the DNR cannot tamper with his existing herd, and yet DNR is saying they still have that right. So it's, again, just shows contempt for our judicial system.
Yeah, it shows complete contempt. I'm going to pause us right there because we got the break sneaking up on us. Ladies and gentlemen, do not go anywhere. This is serious. There is a war on your freedom of choice for food. I mean, your freedom of choice for everything, but what you put in your body should be your choice, not somebody else's. We're going to break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight I am talking to Peter Kennedy, President, founding board member of the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. Before we get back into Mark's case and we finish up with that and get into other cases and actually what the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund is, I want Pete to take a second and plug his website and anything else he wants to throw out there, because he's been so gracious to give us his time for an hour here. Pete, go ahead and plug anything that you want to throw out there, your website or anything else.
Okay, thanks, Popeye. People can find out more about our organization by going to www.farmtoconsumer.org. That's www.farmtoconsumer.org. We're a 501c4 nonprofit, just a true grassroots organization. We get no government funding. We sue government agencies. That's part of our work for violation of our members' rights. Most of our funding comes through private individual donations and just membership fees. So it's just the way we work is we might have a farmer throw a small fundraiser for us, just a consumer belonging to nutrition group or something like that throwing a fundraiser for us. So we're definitely raise the money to keep us going at the grassroots. So just anyone who's interested in talking, anyone at our organization, myself, anyone else, just about more about our work, can also call our office number. That's 703-208-3276 and 703-208-3276. Appreciate the opportunity to give a plug, Popeye.
No problem. First of all, I want to say thank you, Peter, for taking the time to sit with us tonight and talk to us about this. And thank you for having the courage to stand up to the powers that shouldn't be for people's freedom. I mean, it's very hard to find people that are willing to do that nowadays. So thank you for having the courage to do that for Mark and all these other people. I know that I appreciate it as well as the listeners, and I'm sure the farmers and everybody else does too, and the hunters. So a big thank you to you.
Well, it's the farmers and who are willing to stick their necks out that have the most to lose. I mean, when it's an important issue like this and you have someone like Mark who's willing to take whatever the state throws after him, we try and do what we can to help.
Well, I'm just appreciative of the fact that somebody stands up for these people because, it affects us too. What happens to these farmers also affects us because that is our food supply. And if we don't stand up for their freedoms, by the way, even if you don't like the freedoms of hunters, say you don't agree with hunting or whatnot, if you don't stand up for their freedom and their right to do it, what happens if a right or a freedom that you enjoy starts to get taken away or become infringed? Wouldn't you want them to stand up for you? That's the way this works. That's the way this whole concept of this country and this grand experiment is supposed to work, that we all back each other. Anyway, back to Mark, and then I want to actually pick your brain about the Legal Defense Fund for a minute, because I think it's just a really interesting concept in and of itself. But going to break, you made an interesting statement. You said that even though the judge ruled with prejudice that the DNR could not any longer mess with him, they're saying, we don't really care. We're going to anyway if we choose that. We wake up one morning and say, oh, his pigs are now not in line with the law, and we're going to have to come and take 10 of them and kill them. And they feel that they can do that even though this judge told them, no, you can't do that. That's just incredible.
Right, and there's just other evidence of their attitude was seen there by everyone attending that court hearing. I never really heard anything like that happening, but before the hearing started, this assistant attorney general went over to Mark, where Mark was sitting with his attorney, started getting in his face, and then just started getting into it with the members of the crowd. It was just completely unprofessional conduct, and topped it off at the end of the hearing. One of the things that Mark and his attorney had been worried about was just the Michigan legislature had passed the Court of Claims Act, where anyone suing the state would have to sue in Lansing, which is the capital, and where the agency has a much greater advantage. Unfortunately, for Mark, he was able to keep his case in Missaukee County, but with the stunt DNR pulled, completely changing their position, the judge did dismiss the case, and I think this attorney went up to Mark after the case and said, how do you like your court now? So just, utter contempt for the process, and just this image that the Michigan Attorney General's office in DNR was above it all.
Wow. They actually came up and said that to him at the end of this all?
Yeah, it's just completely unprofessional conduct.
Wow. I mean, that's just blatant, not caring about anything. And you know what? We don't care. We're going to do what we want. We're just a bunch of thugs, basically. I mean, I guess, what does the law mean, right? What does it mean?
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing with this declaratory ruling. The law can mean anything they want it to be. I mean, right now, they might not be taking action against someone, but the way the law is right now, they can go farm by farm and get depopulation orders. And I mean, what Mark is doing is trying to make sure that does not happen. But just they have the same cynical attitude toward the judicial process as that they did basically in crafting this declaratory ruling and the Invasive Species Order. So it's, just another way to monopolize the genetics, control the food supply. I mean, this does impact consumers' freedom of choice. If this plays out the way the pork producers would like, people have the choice of buying the white pork, the pork raised in confinement operations, and not a whole lot else.
It's just insane. This whole thing is just insane that they even, I mean, how much money do you think, besides not what he lost, how much money do you think they wasted themselves as the agency? How much money do you think they burned up in funding going after him?
Well, quite a bit. I'd say easily six figures of their time. How much in the six figures, I don't know. But another interesting thing to find out would be is DNR funding the state in pursuing this program. They definitely work with them on this group that crafted the Invasive Species Order. But they given any financial contributions to the state to help push this through. So it's, just a classic definition of fascism. Big corporations working with the state to snuff out competition.
And this is definitely not the country that I remember being told about as a child. I mean, it's absurd. I mean, every day you wake up and you look at the news and you see more and more cases like this. Like I mentioned in the opening segue, the raw food collectives in California getting raided at gunpoint. I mean, this is just, and it's food. This is insane. But when do we not realize that this is totally just off the rocker? You know what I mean?
Well, we're just in a position where we can't let an agency like the DNR get away with something like that. I mean, Mark is, along with this other pig farmer suing the DNR, Roger Tarun, and is trying to hold them accountable and trying to change the law so people can actually understand it. They know what it means and are afforded due process, instead of getting in this situation where words and laws mean anything DNR wants them to mean. So I think there are a lot of areas in the local food movement where things are improving. Like you mentioned at the beginning, just our organization has mainly worked on raw milk cases, and you see there hasn't been as much enforcement the last year or so. It's definitely died down from a few years ago when you had that raid in California that you were just describing. But there's still just these other areas like this invasive species order where people need to wake up and just see that their freedom of choice is being taken from them.
Yeah, I think the farmers, the hunters, the foodies, and I mean even the vegans, the people that don't eat meat, okay? You all need to get together. And I know that some people are going to go, I could never get together with someone that raises animals to be slaughtered, for food. Look, whether you realize it or not, you all have the same thing in common. It's called freedom. Big surprise.
Right.
And it's under attack by the very same people. All of your freedoms. So unless you all band together and start sticking together and defending one another, whether you like each other or not, again, that's the way this grand experiment works. We're going to keep having this problem, and it's just going to get worse. So,
right. I mean, that's how these monopolies are created. Just these companies or organizations like the pork producers can't have a monopoly unless they're working with the government, unless they've got the government doing their bidding for them. They can't. There's no way they can get a monopoly through competition. Their product's inferior to the product put out there by Mark Baker and the other farmers. So for the vegans who say, good, we'd like to see these pork producers come out of business, you've got the FDA Food Safety Modernization Act coming up, where FDA is getting much further into regulating produce. I mean, they could be next. You need to fight in all areas of the food freedom of choice arena. There are a number of different ways the government can attack freedom in this area, and just because your ox isn't getting gored this particular time doesn't mean you shouldn't care about it.
Just remember the federal government and the state governments get lobbied by Monsanto on a daily basis for years now to make growing your own vegetables on your backyard, in your backyard garden, or even on like a porch area illegal. They want to make it literally illegal to grow your own food. So just remember, even if you think
Right.
that, to the vegetarians or vegans or anybody, if you don't eat meat and you think, well, it's cool that, I'm glad that those pigs aren't going to get slaughtered. It's not about that. That's like a red herring. It's about your freedom of choice. They're going to come after you too. Trust me, they already are.
Right. And Monsanto has done a good job monopolizing the seed supply. This is monopolizing pig genetics. They're both about control. So you don't want to see control in any area of food. You just want the local, you want self-sufficiency in food. You want to get as much of your food as possible produced locally. You don't want to have to rely on imports like the United States seems to do. You'd like to have transparency and traceability in the food system, which is really being able to buy from a farm where you can set foot on it and get an idea of what they're about instead of buying some product where the ingredients were made in maybe 8 different countries, 10 different states. You want to be able to buy a hamburger where the meat came from 1 cow instead of 1,000 cows in number of countries, again, number of states.
Yeah, and it also not only does it give you more control over your food and more knowledge of actually what you're eating, but it also supports the local economy. So it's a win-win. I mean, you're getting healthier, cleaner food for yourself, and you're supporting your local economy, and everybody's happy. It's that happy ending.
There's a greater multiplier effect, I think, when you have a prosperous local agricultural system. The dollar turns over more in the community, creates more work. Is what you've happened with the commodification of agriculture and these monopolies in the different areas of agriculture. Is it's just depopulated the countryside in a lot of areas. And that's what the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Association is about, is that we'd like as many of these small farmers to get out of the commodity system as possible and just have the right to direct market the products of the farm to the consumer and have diversified farms where they're not relying on just one crop for a living.
We got about 10 minutes left. I want to focus on that right now. Where did this idea for the Legal Defense Fund come from? Like, when did it start, and how did the idea, where did it formulate? Where did it come from?
Well, I mean, there are really 2 food systems right now, Popeye. There's the conventional or industrial food system, which has almost all the food dollar, and then the local food system, which is growing but still has a small percentage of the food dollar. And really the food at the center of the confrontation between the contention between the 2 systems is raw milk. Raw milk is kind of the gateway, from what we've seen, to the farm. I mean, it's what gets people on the farm in the first place. Once they're there, they might buy meat, poultry, eggs, and produce, but just from what we've seen, it's what gets people on the farm initially more than any other food. Same thing with conventional grocery stores or supermarkets. Milk's a perishable product. It's what gets people into the supermarket, and once they're there, they'll buy other products as well. So, we were started mainly in response to these enforcement actions against raw milk producers going back about 10 years or so. And we started in 2007. Just our founder, Sally Fallon Morell, is the president of Weston Price, which is one of the biggest raw milk advocacy groups. So she saw these enforcement actions, saw there was an unlevel playing field, just realized these agencies would be able to drag these farmers through these administrative judicial proceedings, deplete them of their resources, and legal defense fund couldn't take care of all the expenses they had, but they could take care of the legal expenses, which is a major expense. And typically when we represent someone, they don't, they pay us little or nothing beyond their membership fee. So what we were able to do in a lot of these cases is just level the playing field, where the state was not able to bully farmers and drive them out of business. Just one of the biggest cases we had was last year when we represented this Wisconsin dairy farmer, Vernon Hirschberger, who was charged with 4 criminal misdemeanor counts for violating the state food and dairy code. And I talked to people who estimated the state paid, maybe up to $500,000 trying to prosecute him. They had 7,000 pages worth of documents. They had hired this computer expert over a 3-year period to go through a computer of Vernon Hirschberger's that they confiscated in a raid. And they, just as they got closer to the trial, they just were trying anything they could to wear him down. There was one pretrial hearing after another over any number of issues. And when it was all said and done, he was acquitted on 3 of the 4 counts by a jury of his peers, and was able to keep on feeding his community like he had been. So it's one of the better examples of how we're able to take on the government bullies and protect the people we're representing.
That's really what they are. They're just bullies. I mean, there's really no rhyme or reason. I would understand.
Yeah, and I think that's something Mark Baker has brought out. I mean, it just seems like it's to a point where the state really doesn't know what to do with them. They're not used to someone standing up to them, and they've really just done some things like trying to find someone who's never really broken any law other than allegedly this invasive species order, $700,000. It's just a sign that they're not handling a situation real well where someone is actually standing up to them.
Well, they're handling a bunch of children. I mean, it's almost, it's like, I could understand if they were following, the letter of the letter of the law, and I'm doing air quotes when I say that, whatever's on the books, right? According to what it is on the books. But they had a different stance. They were going after him for any little thing. Their reasons could be for whatever, and then suddenly they were challenged. They didn't know what to do, so they changed their opinion. But then they still flaunted in his face and like, well, even though we changed our opinion and the judge ruled on it, we're still going to screw with you if we want. Like they still got to be that 11-year-old tough guy kid that's trying to pick on you on the playground, and you stood up to him, and as you're walking off like, yeah, he's still, talking to you. Oh, you'll see, I'll get you, you and your friends. I mean, that's basically what they're acting like. They're acting like a bunch of 11-year-old children. There's no reason, once you go past the law and the rules and even a judge's ruling, and you're still pushing the issue and harassing this guy, it comes to a point where you have to ask yourself, why are these people doing that? I mean, why? Are they getting off on their little petty power? You know what I mean?
The other thing is that they really disrespected the judicial system, where the way they pulled off that dismissal. And, I mean, the judicial system can get their measure of revenge for them, too, through this judge by awarding damages to the Baker family and just sending a message to the government agencies that they can't get away with this kind of thing. It's unfortunately, you don't see that all that often, but you've got an opportunity right here to just hold the agency to a higher level of accountability by giving a damage award out. against them for what they've done.
Yeah, I agree. They need to set a precedent and set an example, just like they would do with one of these farmers or hunters, and the state agency would go after them and set an example, for all the others. Well, it should be done in reverse on them, because like the old saying goes, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It ain't right if they can get away with it, but the same thing that they get away with scot-free, somebody else, Joe Citizen, would be put in jail for the rest of his life and harassed or have his business ruined. It's just not right. We got about a minute left, Peter. Really quick, again, throw out the website for everybody, and I urge people, if you have a few bucks and you want to donate to a good cause, here's a definite good cause. The money's going to go to help farmers, help hunters, help people out, help food freedom. So really quick, go ahead and throw out that information for the website again, Peter.
Okay, sure. It's www.farmtoconsumer.org. That's www.farmtoconsumer.org. And again, if anyone wants to talk to anyone about the organization, get more information over the phone, they can call us at 703-208-3276. That's 703-208-3276. Again, appreciate the opportunity to plug the organization, Papa.
No problem. I really appreciate you coming on tonight, Peter, and discussing Mark's case, discussing the Legal Defense Fund, and discussing food freedom in general. And I also applaud you for having the courage to stand up to these petty tyrants. It really does take courage to stand up in times like these. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And I know the listeners and the farmers and the hunters appreciate it as well, sir.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me on.
No problem. Talk to you soon. There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Peter Kennedy. I urge you to check out the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. I want to make sure I get that right. Give them the proper respect that they are due. Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund. If you can donate, ladies and gentlemen, there's a good cause to donate to. They help these farmers fight food freedom. Again, vegetarians, vegans, meat eaters, we're all on the same team. I'm an omnivore. I eat everything. I like salads, but I also like a steak once in a while. We all need to come together and realize that food freedom is food freedom. Doesn't matter if you like eating veggies or if you like eating a cow. Freedom is freedom. Get it?
This is Sparta!
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break. We'll be back in 3 short minutes. Do not go anywhere. When we get back, we'll get into a few other things, including where that plane went. A little weird in there. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. It is March 11th, 2014. Awesome guest in the first hour, Mr. Peter Kennedy. I'm going to make sure I'm going to take the first hour of the broadcast. I know I always put it up on YouTube in 2-hour full format, which I will, but I'm going to make the first hour of that one a special 1-hour separate podcast version archive as well, and spread that out because that was just a really good interview about food freedom. I was talking to Peter during the break. I'm going to have him back on to talk about raw milk and other stuff. He's a very, very knowledgeable fellow. And as I said, I was serious when I said food freedom affects all of us. It really does. I mean, we have to eat to survive. Their little petty controls on food aren't about making things safer for you or me or anybody else. It's about control, because he who controls the food controls everything, controls the whole world. You can't eat oil, you can't eat gold, and you can't eat bullets, but you can certainly eat food, and you can certainly drink water. Think about that for a minute. Just think about that for a brief minute. Anyway, while you're thinking about that, I want to change gears. I want to get into my weirdness topic at the beginning of the hour number 2 here. The weirdness of the 777 that disappeared. The Malaysian Airlines flight that just completely disappeared. A little bit weird, right? Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 239 passengers, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Mike and I briefly talked about this on Friday. We came back in final segment, and I said, because I just seen it come across my my desk, that the plane had been missing. And we were surprised that at that point that they had not found it yet. And that was only a few hours after it had gone missing. We were surprised that they couldn't find it. And it's been like 4.5, 5 days. Obviously, the plane's got to be somewhere. It's got to be on the ground. It can't still be in the air. The question is has it landed somewhere safely? Has it disintegrated in midair? Did it crash into the ocean and sink? There's a lot of things that don't make sense about this whole thing. And I know people are writing articles about it, and there's a lot of different theories. But there is a lot of weirdness surrounding this whole thing. I mean, the area that it sunk in, supposedly, well, the depth of the water, I should say, and the area that they think that it could have crashed into was only like 200-300 feet. I know that sounds deep to some people, but to my fellow sailors out there, you understand that ain't deep. They've had to recover black boxes from much deeper depth. So the question remains, how could they not find a plane in 300 feet of water? Especially with the technology that they have. The black boxes give off a signal, and there is radio equipment that is used to track it. There's also a homing beacon for planes in distress. When I was in the Coast Guard, one of the first things that they taught us is every plane crash, like every commercial large plane, even Cessnas and stuff, Learjets, anything like that, any plane flying, I should say, and any boat out there has an emergency locator beacon. Now, even if I remember correctly, now by law you're supposed to have it, and I know the Coast Guard busts your balls to look. I don't know if they've changed it, but I can't see why they would have. I mean, I know when I was in 10 years ago, that was one of the things they looked for. You're supposed to have that even on small boat. Now, it's up to the owner to go purchase it, but that would allow somebody to be found. Now, on larger aircraft, they have a bigger, more commercial version of that, a more powerful version, we'll say. It's just very odd that a large plane like a 777 went missing. Now, you can turn the transponder off. That's a possibility, but if there were terrorists, because that would be the only reason why I could think of that someone would turn the transponder off. If there were terrorists, don't you think by now they would have a video with all of the passengers lined up somewhere on a football field or something? Maybe the plane in the background? Cobra Commander would come out of his little, underground realm in the mountain there. The top would open up and you'd see the inside of this football field, and there'd be the plane that they sucked in with their tractor beam, and he'd be laughing. Ha 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 ha. I mean, that's what you'd expect, right? Some terrorist organization that was able to hijack a 777 and have it steer off course and go somewhere else. This whole thing is weird. I'm not saying that I know what happened at all. It could have been terrorism, but I really don't think it was. You'd think by now people would have been, hooping and hollering that they actually did it. And there's a couple people trying to take credit here and there, but there's always idiots that try to latch on and take credit. Just like you have copycat killers, or when there's a serial killer, and even people that take credit for it that didn't do it at all. People are weird. But this is really strange, this whole thing. Perhaps it got shot down. And, who knows? The possibilities are endless. I mean, we could speculate. Let's put our speculative hats on for a minute, okay? Everybody wants to talk about this. I know that they do. They've been wanting to talk about it all weekend. So let's chat about it for a second. What could have happened? Well, a litany of things could have happened. If they can't find the wreckage, I would guess that it probably didn't crash into the ocean, per se, like one piece. You would think that if they couldn't find it, it would disintegrate it in midair. Now, if it disintegrated in midair, explosion, catastrophic mechanical failure of some sort, which is possible. I mean, at those speeds and at that height, something something all you need is the wrong thing to happen. And yeah, I mean, you get something catastrophic happening. There's no recovering. Those planes are super heavy, and it would start to dive and perhaps tear itself apart. I mean, it's happened before. There were planes of, torn apart in mid-flight. Of course, sometimes they've actually been able to land some of them. Sometimes they haven't. Sometimes they have crashed and killed everybody on board. But you would think by now they would have found the plane. I think what's even stranger is the fact that they say that they have no idea. Now, you could say that perhaps aliens came down and abducted the plane into some mothership. That could be true. I saw one person comment, is it possible that the plane just flew too high and flew into outer space and it's just floating around in outer space and they just haven't seen it yet? No, it's not. I don't even know why that possibility would come into your head. For a number of reasons. But they would have seen it if it was out there because it would have been considered a near-Earth object and the satellites would have picked it up. So I think in that case, they would have seen it if it was flying out into outer space. That being said, that's not how it works. I think you should go back and take a basic science class again. Anyway, so yeah, the alien mothership could have sucked up the plane. Hijackers could have taken it to some lair. Although I don't know why they wouldn't have come out by now and said something, what their demands were. Maybe Jacob and the rest of the others over on the island of whatever the hell it was called in Lost, maybe they turned on their little machine, the island, and sucked the plane in. All you Lost fans out there. I mean, I really do not know. You want me to put on my speculative hat for a minute? My conspiracy theorist hat for a minute? I will. If I were to think away from the craziness, the aliens or anything like that, perhaps the plane Bermuda Triangle itself and went to another dimension, let's put all that craziness aside for a second. Let's think with some logic. I think somebody accidentally shot it down. And that's why you don't know about it yet and why I don't know about it yet. Now, that's completely pure speculation. I could be completely wrong. But if I'm sitting looking at it, if I had to take a guess out of all of the possibilities, I would say there's a possibility that it was shot down, whether it was by accident or on purpose. It was shot down by a government. And they're just not talking about it yet. Now, the fact that it wasn't done on... If it was done on purpose, you would think that they would be bragging about it, saying, see, look what we did, blah, 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 blah. It could have been shot down completely on accident. It could have been... And when I say shot down, they could have been testing... there's a lot of military action going on in that whole area. And with all the tension over China and Japan and, North Korea and South Korea... now this thing with Russia and the Ukraine. Who knows? There might have been war games going on, and somebody might have pressed the wrong red button. The targeting computers on military vessels are incredible. And if they target the wrong thing, sometimes it's hard to turn that thing off and get it to stop. So, I don't know, for sure 100% what happened. If I had to look at it with a little bit of logic, I would say it's more than likely it might have been accidentally shot down and they're trying to figure out how they're going to handle it, and they're recovering bodies and blah 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 blah. If you wanted me to put on my conspiracy theorist hat, otherwise, I mean, the possibilities are quite endless until we figure it out. And quite honestly, the longer that this thing is missing for without any trace, the weirder it is going to seem, and the more open to weird possibilities some people might even become. Is it going to be the truth? we'll only know when we find out, right? When we find the plane, or we figure out eventually what happened. I mean, I'm sure there's some UFO nuts out there, and I say that with all love. I'm a UFO nut myself. But I'm sure there's, UFO lovers, maybe I'll say, out there. I hate the word nut. I shouldn't use that. Bad Popeye. Ufologists. I'm sure there's a ufologist out there that would love that, for this thing to have been abducted by aliens or something like that. I mean, cool science fiction. I really just don't think that's the case, and I don't think that it was sucked into another dimension. I mean, that is a possibility. Quantum physics, look things up, take some time and learn a few different things. But I'm not saying that that's what happened. I think if I had to venture a guess as to why nobody knows anything yet and they haven't quote-unquote found anything, yet there's 200 vessels looking for this thing, and the area that it supposedly would have crashed into the ocean isn't that deep, well, when you factor all these things together, I would venture a guess that perhaps maybe they don't want you to know. Is that what's going on? I do not know. Again, that's with my conspiracy theorist hat on. Let me take that off for a second. What else could it be? It could have been a catastrophic failure. Plane could have just ripped itself apart. It could have been something, mechanical failure. That does happen, And not everything is a conspiracy or, UFO related or paranormal. I mean, there are things that, sometimes bad things do happen. Maybe that's the case where it was a mechanical failure. Nut came loose, bolt came loose, something came loose, boom, brakes. And could have been that simple. Do I know for a fact that it was that simple? No. But it could have been that simple. It's a little weird that they haven't found it yet. It's a little weird that there's, passengers with missing or stolen passports, I should say. I noticed the media and certain people in the government are very quick to jump on the terrorist bandwagon, and they're like, well, we can't write that off yet. Even though there's a lot of investigators that are actually investigating the thing, not just using it to pontificate, to push whatever political agenda you're trying to push, but actually people that are involved in the investigation here and looking for it. And they have said there is, even intelligence agencies, there is no evidence to say that this was a terror attack or terror related in any way yet. They just haven't found any connection. And yet you have people like Peter King. Ugh. I could do a whole show on that guy. Peter, I'm a terrorist in my own right, King, but let's scare everybody and make everybody Islamophobes. I'm not saying there aren't bad people that are, Muslims, but there's also bad Christians and bad Jewish people and bad Buddhists too. So this guy's just got everybody fearing one specific group. Ooh, Al-Qaeda's in your closet. Anyway, Mr. IRA terrorist himself. So Peter King wants you to not put anything out of the, not rule anything out. Don't rule anything out yet. Could be terrorism, could be terrorism. Mainstream media, could be terrorism, could be terrorism. Is it terror-related? I heard Sean Hannity the other day. I know no one wants to say it. And yes, I unfortunately, I was driving and I wanted to listen to AM. I was trying to go through the different talk radio shows, and the only thing that was on was his radio show. So sometimes I do have to listen to them to try to see what they're talking about, and I can only stomach Hannity for about 10 or 15 minutes. And before I turned him off because I was getting nauseous, he was pushing the terrorism angle, and then of course Iran. And he's like, I don't have any proof, but I'm just saying, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, the evidence is right there. The evidence is right there. No, the evidence is not right there, Sean. You're lying. But again, I wouldn't expect anything more from you. I wouldn't expect the truth. It's just, I mean, they're trying to pin it on Iran. They're trying to pin it on quote unquote terrorism. I mean, they would love for 777 to go disappear, to the bottom of the drink somewhere, or get blown up or whatever, or hijacked by terrorists. They would love that, even if it wasn't faked, it was real. The powers that shouldn't be would love it because they would exploit the hell out of it to push fear. You see? Oh my God! We need checkpoints in the plane. You need to have TSA fondling you for the entire trip. We're just going to have a TSA agent per passenger. So we're only going to be able to take half the normal load because the other half will be TSA agents, and it'll be passenger agent, passenger agent, passenger agent. They'll be fondling you the entire trip. It'll be really an uncomfortable trip, especially if you're doing a long-haul 12 to 14-hour flight. Ooh, you're in for a doozy. Have fun with that. You're probably going to have issues and need therapy after that flight. I mean, this is just insane. So yeah, they would totally push in Bizarro World for that type of police state activity, even if it were a real event. But I don't know if it is or not. I'm not saying terrorism because there's no evidence to support that right now. There's no evidence to support that the UFOs took it either. There's really no evidence to support anything. There's no evidence. There's no plane. There's no wreckage, which that in itself is weird. But is that the truth? Again, is the possibility out there that they could be lying to you and they accidentally shot it down or something and they don't want you to know about it? And say, okay, maybe they didn't shoot it down, but if you even look at the question of why would they not want you to know about it? Well, then you have to surmise that maybe they did shoot it down or something like that happened. I heard the mainstream media even talking about comets. Oh my God, could it have been a comet? Could a rogue comet could have flown through the atmosphere and taken the plane out? Really? You don't think the near-Earth, the near-Earth satellite system that they have tracking all these near-Earth objects floating around the outside? You don't think the satellites that track all that stuff? You don't think they would have noticed a comet or something coming in? Might just slip right by them. You don't think like NORAD would have tracked that coming into the upper atmosphere? Because that's what they do. Intercontinental ballistic missiles go up, like just on the edge of the atmosphere and just about into space and then come back down. But I guess NORAD doesn't have to worry about that. I guess they just wait for the missile to get like pretty much right on target and then it tracks it, right? That's how it works. I mean, supposedly NORAD can track Santa Claus. I don't know how they wouldn't be able to, them or any of these other partners in the sky tracking system, these other militaries. I don't know how Russia or China, how could they not see it? I mean, you got to think. You got to use your head when you're thinking about this stuff. Think. Again, with the terrorism angle, why would Iran? I screamed at the radio. I called them an effing liar. The people in the car next to me thought I was insane. You should have seen them looking at me like, what the hell is he yelling at? But I just screamed at Hannity on the radio when he was talking about Iran. I said, you're, a liar. Why would Iran attack one of their own allies? Well, what do you mean? Well, it was a Malaysian Airlines flight, but there was a lot of Chinese passengers on there. There was only three Americans, one guy and two kids. I don't think Iran was trying to terrorize them or trying to take them out. It makes no sense. So there's mostly Chinese citizens on board this aircraft, right? Or a large part of the largest portion of the passengers, we'll say, are Chinese. Why would Iran take them out? That wouldn't affect us in any way, shape, or form. It wouldn't affect our national security in any way, shape, or form. Why would Iran attack China, one of their allies? Hello? Marty McFly? Anybody home, McFly? Huh? Anybody home? Use your brains. That doesn't make sense. So when you get bombarded with that crap, don't fall for it, ladies and gentlemen. Use your brain. You were all born with an incredible computer. You are all smart. You're all better than that. Don't buy into that crap. Such garbage. Iran could have done it. How would they have benefited? You have to think, if someone did something like this, how would they have benefited from it in order to do this? I mean, taking out a 777 with 239 people, doesn't matter what country you do it to, you're going to piss that country off. Okay? You're going to piss that country off. And something's going to happen from it if you're another country or a terrorist. It just doesn't make any sense. Why would Iran do that? Don't buy that crap either. That's people using this to push an agenda, and they'll only use it as much as they can, and then once the truth comes out, they'll push it could be terrorism, you never know. Yeah, and Santa Claus could have come down and been running a couple months late and running behind, and I forgot little Timmy, and accidentally collided with the plane, or a meteorite could have come down, or the UFOs could have come got it, the reptilians or the Pleiadians or whoever else could have sucked it up into their tractor beam. Maybe Darth Vader and an Imperial Star Destroyer came in and ate it. I mean, it could be a lot of things. The possibilities right now are endless. But to run around and almost act like it's terrorism, shame on you, mainstream media. Shame on you, Sean Hannity. Shame on you, any of you politicians that push that. Peter King. Again, really? Those in glass houses should not throw stones, sir. Yes, I'm talking to you, Representative Peter King. That's right. Mr. Terrorist Extraordinaire himself. Go look it up, ladies and gentlemen. This guy wants you to be afraid of one boogeyman while he supported another one. Oh, what? What? Politicians lie and they support things that are bad for us and they actually support bad people? Yeah, you should actually go do your research. Just utterly ridiculous. Okay, they'll use any excuse. They'll hop on anything that they can and label it terrorism. I'm surprised they didn't. They might have mentioned 9/11. Who knows? I can't listen to them for like more than 30 or 40 seconds now at a clip because it literally just makes my head like, it's like, ow, I have this throbbing pain in my forehead. Ow, you're making me hurt. Ow. Or I have fits of rage where I scream at the radio and the people in the car next to me are like, whoa, this guy needs, he needs to take a Joe pill. It infuriates me to hear lies. And I know that there's people out there that are literally just lapping that up like a kitten drinking a saucer of milk. Oh my God, terrorism, Iran, 9/11, oh my God, fear, blah, 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 blah. Just, stop. Don't drink the fear milk. Somebody needs to come over and kick that saucer over. Stop drinking the fear milk. Fear aid instead of Kool-Aid. Fear aid. That's what they give everybody. Here, have some fear aid. Drink it up. Guzzle, 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 guzzle. Oh my God, be afraid. Al-Qaeda's in your sock drawer. Look, this plane is missing. We don't know what's going on right now. We can speculate till the cows come home. I told you, put on my conspiracy theorist hat what I think could happen if, they haven't found it by now. Maybe they don't want us to find it. Maybe they don't want us to know what happened yet. That's a possibility too. But really the possibilities are endless at this point. Anything is just speculation. And I mean, even the mainstream media and a lot of these investigators are pretty much speculating. They don't know. They admit. And when the mainstream media is openly talking about maybe aliens came and got it, there's that theory, Bermuda Triangle. And they kind of chuckle, but not like, oh, ha, 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 ha. Anyway, break coming up. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a few short, quick minutes. Stay tuned. Got a few other things I want to talk about. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Final segment of tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I want to get into an article I just wrote earlier this afternoon. It's up on federaljack.com. It's titled, Marco Rubio, quote, "We have to make a few changes to trigger a new American century," end quote. Does that sound familiar to any of you, ladies and gentlemen? Let me repeat that last portion of his quote. A new American century. Does anybody recognize that phrase? Anyone ever heard of PNAC? The Project for a New American Century? Interesting that he would use a term over and over and over and over and over again. Him being Rubio. He's been speaking. He spoke today at Google, or at an event hosted by Google, and there was one other organization there. And he spoke there. He spoke at CPAC. And then He was on the Kudlow Report on MSNBC. And he was talking the same propaganda. And I'm sure you'll see him on Fox pushing it. I'm sure he might even go on CNN and push it. I don't think people realize what he's pushing. He's pushing the line of propaganda that was put forth by the same people that created 9/11, the same people that created the Bush administration, the same people that created what we have now. They transformed our way of thinking after 9/11 from this peace-loving, partying, all love and happiness bunch of people to this warmongering, afraid of everybody in our own shadow, and oh my God, Al-Qaeda's in the corner. PNAC, the Project for a New American Century. It's a think tank. It consisted of people like Paul Wolfowitz, Donald Rumsfeld, Dick Cheney, Jeb Bush, Richard Pearl, John Bolton, Scooter Libby, Richard Armitage, William Crystal, and others. All men with connections to big oil, multinational corporate industries, all poised to make huge sums of money and secure huge tracts of power and influence if, policy goes through, right? And a lot of people say, well, PNAC's not together anymore. It's kind of defunct. It's not okay. So maybe they're not in public, but you don't think these guys could get together and have a sit down somewhere at someone's estate and talk? Maybe a couple of them, and then they have different organizations, different people that they work through. Maybe they realize they can't do it through PNAC anymore because it's been exposed. So they just change up. Now they work through other people like, oh, look, Marco Rubio, spewing their same type of propaganda. PNAC put out a document in 2000 called Rebuilding America's Defenses. Okay? And this is all in the article that I wrote. It's up on federaljack.com, again, under the featured article section. And I put, just in case the name PNAC, also known as the Project for a New American Century, doesn't sound familiar to you, allow me to introduce you to them. PNAC is a think tank whose members include many of the core policy advisors for the Bush administration. They have become notorious for articulating the need for a, quote, new Pearl Harbor, end quote, in its 2000 policy paper titled Rebuilding America's Defenses. In the document, they cite a potential problem with their plan. Referring to the goals of transforming U.S. and global power structure, the paper states that because of the American public's slant toward ideas of democracy and freedom, quote, this process of transformation is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor, unquote. Now, I find it a little ironic that not too long after this document came out, the very same people came to power in the Bush administration. And 9 months after these very same people came to power, we had what George Bush Jr., W., wrote in his diary that day, and he's quoted as saying, the Pearl Harbor of his generation. So we had our, quote, new Pearl Harbor. We had like 1 million people sign up to join the military after 9/11, ready to fight and kill. Are you kidding me? Those scumbag Arabs, they attacked us, killed those people in New York. We're going to get them. We're going to kick some Al-Qaeda ass. Yeah, yeah. They angered the general public. They knew what they were doing. I was one of those people. Remember, I was a first responder. It affected me much differently than it affected people only watching it on TV. I wanted to go bite bullets out of the air and kill people with my bare teeth and my fingernails. I didn't even want to use a knife or a gun. I wanted it to be bare hands. I wanted to break necks. That's how angry I was. I had people around me that were so angry they wanted to do the same things. They wanted to kill with their bare hands for what they saw happen to this country. They were angry. We went from being peace-loving and, Not that we didn't kick ass before, but we were a chill country. We were on a different footing. All of a sudden, we went from this more of a relaxed footing to, we went from growth, right, or what we perceive to be growth, into protection. And we did it as a country, in ourselves, individually, and as a country. And we got angry, and we got mad, and we got used. Now, it's not just irony that these very same people that document that put this policy document together saying that we need a new Pearl Harbor were in power, a year and a half later when that new Pearl Harbor happened. It's not coincidence. It's not, oh, isn't that weird? It's not weird at all. It happened for a reason. Okay. Since then, their agenda has not changed. It's continuing. I mean, if you go read the entire document, it's holding up to what you see today, even with the tension in Asia. Go read the whole document. You'll see what I'm talking about. Rebuilding America's defenses. Look it up. It's on the internet while you can still rip it. I know the original page on PNAC's website is gone, but there's plenty of people that have put the PDF up there and have it in full, and you can download it from their sites, or they have it copied and stuff. Read it. Read it. Describes what we've been going through since 9/11. Go ahead, I dare you. Be a rebel and spend 20 minutes actually educating yourself. Woohoo! PNAC. From the year 2000, Rebuilding America's Defenses. Look it up. Project for a New American Century. So, anyway, Marco Rubio comes on and starts talking about, we need a new American century. Go listen to his speech from CPAC. In fact, it's in the article. It's linked multiple times in there. In fact, up at the top it says, after speaking at CPAC, and then later on down in the same paragraph it says, after hearing his speech at CPAC, both of them are hyperlinks to said speech. He says a new American century at least 3 or 4 times that I can remember off the top of my head during the speech. You think that's just that's just a catchphrase, Popeye? He's a politician. No, it's not just a catchphrase. They're selling you their idea of a new American century. Okay, what was his idea? What was he talking about? Well, he was very vague. I mean, I'll play a little bit of the audio, but he was very vague. I mean, he talked about like a regulatory budget, meaning there's too much regulation, and if the regulatory he wants to put this little commission together, and if the budget that they set is exceeded by the regulations and stuff that are out there, then they have to figure out a way to get rid of regulations so that they're in line with this budget. Now, again, I'm not for government overreach, but complete deregulation of everything that quickly and the way they've done it already has caused destruction to this country's economy. Just saying. So, do you really think that's in the country's best interest? I mean, I'm see things like that. It's not just easily. It's not as cut and dry as one would think. There's actually a little bit more of a gray area to it. But again, their agenda is not what they would push it to be. Free trade agreements. Oh, you mean like the TPP? They push the Keystone Pipeline. That's another thing he's pushing. Change to the corporate tax code. Not a change to your tax code saying, we charge the poor people of this country too much. No. A change to the corporate tax code so that more people will want to do business here, meaning tax breaks for huge corporations, but not for you. Immigration reform that, quote, will allow us to bring in a workforce if needed. Allow us to bring in a workforce? How many people are out of jobs here, Senator Rubio? I know that's not important to you guys, though, because you guys have an agenda. And besides, you're not really in charge. Your masters are in charge. And you're pushing whatever agenda that is being set forth for you. Like I said in the article, it makes me wonder if PNAC is writing policy papers for the United States government or for people in the government to push to be used eventually as government policy. I'm going to let you listen to a little bit of the audio. I'm not going to play the whole thing because I can't stomach Rubio for the whole 10 minutes, but I'm going to play a little bit of this. Here we go. He says right in the beginning, New American Century. Listen.
Senator Marco Rubio attempting to fight economic pessimism with a new growth agenda. He unveiled this at the Kemp Foundation event today, co-sponsored by Google. Senator Rubio joins us live now. As always, Senator Rubio, it's great to see you. You know, Jack Kemp was a mentor of mine. He was a great friend of mine. I mean, going back to the mid and late 1970s. Right. He was for growth, opportunity, incentives. Right now, Senator, all I hear, inequality, stagnation, pessimism, defeatism, punishing success. How can you turn this around? Because in some sense, turning this around can turn America around.
Thanks for having me on tonight. I think that that's exactly the point. My argument is that we're actually on the verge of a new American century. So much of what's happening around the world is of such tremendous benefit, but there's some things we're going to have to do to get that right. It's within our reach, but we're going to have to change our laws, and we're going to have to change our tax code. And
No, I just got to pause there for a second. You see what he admitted? So much of what's going around is to our benefit around the world. What going on around the world right now, pray tell, is to our benefit, Senator Rubio? Could you please explain to me? With all the insanity that's going on, what's benefiting us? Oh, you don't mean us, like the listeners. You mean us, as in you and your group of little elitists that are listening to this interview. You don't really mean, us as in the general public. You mean us as in the smaller group of individuals that will benefit. And it's certainly not us, as in the regular folk.
We're going to have to change a number of regulations that we have so that we can encourage innovation, investment, and expanding access to markets. If we do that, America is uniquely positioned in the 21st century. If we fail to do that, then I think we're going to pay a huge opportunity cost price in terms of opportunities that we're going to lose out on.
See, that's the thing. It's almost, Senator, it's a policy issue. And I want to talk about your specifics. You got a great list of specifics here in a minute. But it's like a psychological issue. That's the thing. It's like we've been engulfed in this pessimism. Instead of can do, it's all about we can't do. Later in the program, I have ace pollster John McLaughlin coming on, who's going to tell us, among other things, that running on Obamacare is not enough for the Republican Party. There has to be a growth.
Now, you see what they're doing? What they're doing is they're hijacking these people. These fake conservatives that are controlling Rubio and Kudlow here talking to him. I agree with you. Rubio, this faux conservative, this controlled opposition, if you will, he's pushing, you have a whole list of interesting things. Yeah, that he didn't come up with, genius. It was probably put together by PNAC or whatever they've turned into. And he's pushing this. And Kudlow, he set the whole argument, the tone for it. I'm going to point this out in a second, but he's pushing this agenda that's not his own, so people understand that. Again, this is something that's formulated for him, handed to him, and they say, "Hey, Marco, comb your hair and go on camera and look pretty." Okay, that's what we need you for. But Kudlow is setting the argument up here that the present administration, remember, only one of two choices, right or left, choice A or choice B. The current administration, which obviously is, people would say lefty, right? Left-leaning, if you believe in the whole left-right lie. They're all about pessimism and, not about what America can do. We're all about what America can do. So you see what they're doing? They're setting the stage so that way they can bring about one of their neocon, PNAC, whatever sponsored fake conservative candidates for 2016. And all this anger at the Obama administration, right? People aren't, instead of waking up, they're playing the same old trick, and they're trying to get people to buy into that left-right paradigm. And, oh, you know what? Obama and those lefties are nuts, but look, we're conservatives, a new American century. And there's a lot of people with conservative values out there that are very, they're pissed off at the GOP. They're very pissed off at, the liberals or Obama and, the Obama bots. And now they see these guys acting like they're a little bit different than the quote-unquote establishment GOP. Oh, look, an alternative. They're not an alternative. They're controlled by the same douchebags that brought us 9/11 and the police state that we all now enjoy. The very same police state that Obama and his administration ramped up, yeah. It was created by the same people that are trying to get back in. Can you only imagine what it'll be like if they get back in? I mean, the other people are bad enough, but these people, You remember how much of a police state it was after 9/11? Not that it's not now, but you remember how quickly it turned? You think it's bad with Obama? Just wait. It'll be just as bad or even worse because the agenda will keep going. There will be no change for the good. What, are you going to vote Romney back in? No, Romney's too rich. I'm going to vote for Rand Paul. You might as well jump off a cliff. Seriously, you might as well vote for your dog. It would be a less wasted vote. He's another one. He's got a little bit of neocon in him, people. Well, he's our only hope, Popeye. How could you shoot our only hope down? See, that's your problem. You're putting all your stock in someone else, and that's why you are forever going to be a slave, because you refuse to wake up. You refuse to understand that in order to be truly free, you need to stop looking to people with suits or capes or leotards to be your frigging superheroes and understand that you are the only true superhero out there. I sign off every night telling you all that I love you, and what else? The solutions to our problems are an inside job. Well, you don't understand how politics works, Popeye. No, I understand exactly how it works. I also understand that you are so naive that you will keep putting your belief in a figurehead to come save you because this time they'll be different. You know what the definition of insanity is, ladies and gentlemen? Doing the same thing over and over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Any questions? It's that simple. Rubio, total shill. Don't believe this guy. I mean, there's so many good, well-meaning, conservative-minded people out there that really want to buy into these guys. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not picking on you. I understand it. I'm not bashing you. I was raised in a conservative household. I'm middle of the road. I'm very open-minded. I'm not closed-minded on either aspect. You know, I'm not right or left. I'm just me, and I have my beliefs. And that's it. I don't choose one of these fake sides. You should too. See, if everybody stopped playing the game, remember, there's way more of us than there is of them. If we all stopped playing the game, they'd become irrelevant, and it would stop. The illusion would stop. You know, if nobody believed that Chris Angel had special magical powers of illusion and fantasy and the guy was a magician, if nobody bought his crap and everybody saw through his garbage and realized that it was all illusion, a lot of it done with camera fakery and things like that, well, you know, he wouldn't really have any money coming in. He wouldn't have any power, would he? No. Well, same thing here. They're like a modified version of Chris Angel. They're like a big version of it. Just as big as losers, too. Really. You got to stop buying the illusion, ladies and gentlemen. Rand Paul's not going to save you. Marco Rubio is not going to save you. Ted Cruz is not going to save you. They're setting it up so that way they're already setting the stage that they're going to have their own picks, and it doesn't matter if the quote-unquote Tea Party tries to get in there. They'll get pushed out, even if you get Rand in there. People will think, oh, Rand's a Tea Party guy. That's good. He's in there. Maybe they'll put Rand in just to keep everybody calm, right? Keep everybody cool so that everybody sticks together. Except Rand's not really a Tea Party guy, is he? No. He's a bit of a neocon. Ted Cruz? Cruz is a bit of a neocon. In fact, they all are. Rubio, Cruz, all of them. Rand Paul, none of them are going to save you, ladies and gentlemen. And I know I'm breaking a lot of people's hearts right now and pissing them off. I'm sure people are probably tuning out. I don't want to talk to Popeye. He's being negative. I'm not being negative. I'm telling you the truth. You need to not fall for it. Because if you do, it's going to be the same crap all over again. And then when you're pissed off at them in 4 to 8 years, then people will vote the left in again. And it'll be the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Would you do this in your personal relationships? Would you continue to be in a bad relationship and just be like, I'm just going to continue and stay in it? Well, I don't know any other options, Popeye. But you have other options. You could break up with that person and perhaps move on and find somebody that you're happy with. No, I can't do that. I can't do that. I'm comfortable where I'm at. I feel safe here. I'll just bitch and moan all the time and be miserable. Stop it. They don't care about you. They don't. I believe me, I used to vote too. I quit voting in the national elections. I vote for local stuff. Don't get me wrong, I vote for the local stuff because that's really where the fight is at the local level. But the national elections, it's already picked. Please. It's gonna be Hillary 2016 versus Jeb Bush. Why do I say Jeb Bush and not Rand Paul? I'm willing to bet it'll be Jeb Bush, Rand Paul, or Rand Paul, Jeb Bush vice president. Why do I say that? Because Jeb Bush's name keeps getting thrown around already. I've already seen it. And those are the two families, which, by the way, it's more like one family. Everybody thinks that Bush and Clinton argue. Pfft. Okay. That's why George W. Bush Sr., H.W., called Bill Clinton his other son. He still calls him that. He says, he's like a son to me. But they hate each other. They go fishing together, they go golfing, they do all, but they hate each other. They're mortal enemies, Popeye. They're locked in mortal combat forever. Round one, fight! Negative. That's not how it works, ladies and gentlemen. At all. At all. Like Ventura said, it's like the WWF, or now they call themselves the WWE. Whatever. It's all fake, out in the mat, I hate you, I'm going to kick your ass, blah, 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 blah. When they get off screen and they're back in the locker room, they're like, hey, man, you coming over to the kid's birthday party this weekend? Yeah, I wouldn't miss it, Me and Debbie will be there. See you then. Ooh, it'll be a hoot. Hey, you want to go out for a beer? You want to get dinner? Rubio and all of them, they're all faux conservatives. Look, this cycle is going to keep repeating itself until we realize that none of them care. See, if everybody, as I said earlier, realized that those people on Capitol Hill and the White House are irrelevant, completely irrelevant, if people actually realize that, when I say people, I mean the civilians, the people in the military, if people actually realized that those people are irrelevant, there's only a few of them and about 350 million of us. Who do you think has the numbers, ladies and gentlemen? We could literally solve our own problems. We don't need to look to these 535 people. Let's add the White House and all of their minions and everything. Okay, like 700, 800 people in Washington, maybe. Okay, we'll even up the number. We'll say, what are you going to look to 1,000 people to be your saviors? Oh, everybody in Washington, you congressmen and senators and politicians and policymakers and lobbyists, and oh my God, and chiefs of staff, oh help, save me, come pave my road. I cut my finger, I need you to come put a Band-Aid on it. You'll be bleeding to death before they come and put a Band-Aid on it, okay? Seriously. That's why they have control of us. And that's what I see them doing. I see them hijacking really well-intentioned people out there that are just disenfranchised and looking for an alternative, but with a conservative view. And they're going to get hijacked again by the very same people that brought you 9/11, the police state, the Bush administration, Halliburton, the Iraq War. And I could go on. But I think you get the point, ladies and gentlemen. These guys are no good. They're faux conservatives. Like, I applaud you for your beliefs and sticking to your beliefs no matter what they are, ladies and gentlemen. But don't allow those beliefs to be like a fishing hook. Because that's what these politicians use to reel you in, okay? Use your own brains. Realize that you really, truly are the solutions to your own problems. And the sooner everybody starts to think like that, the more irrelevant the powers that shouldn't be will become. And that's how we win. Because then the game is over. It's that simple.
This is Sparta!
It's time to stand up. Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. I love you all, truly and deeply. The solutions to our problems are most definitely an inside job. I will catch you all again tomorrow night. I love you all. I'm out of here.